The end of the Baki manga. We got our first ever reveals about this from the author Itagaki himself. Recently, I became aware of an interview NHK World Japan did with the creator of Baki, where he answered the following question: how does he envision the manga ending, and much more to break down throughout today's video. Therefore, to begin, this interview is actually very new, as throughout we see him working on the current manga, Baki Rahen, drawing the recent fight between Kosho and Jack Hanma, making this interview probably the most important we have in the current days of Baki. So when talking about the possible end of the Baki series, Itagaki has claimed in other interviews, particularly during the release of the previous Baki anime season, that the father-son arc with Yujiro and Baki's big fight was the end of their character arcs, meaning the end of the story where Baki's whole goal was to defeat his father, who just happened to be the strongest creature alive. And this is kinda pointed out again in this interview, and of course when looking at the story itself, as following those events in the next 3 manga, you could say different characters have taken over as the protagonists, with the introduction of Masashi Miyamoto during his arc, then Sukune for Baki Dao 2018, and now Jack Hanma in Baki Rahen, with all 3 of them potentially being considered the protagonists during each of those following arcs, not Baki, with Yujiro also taking a backseat in the story, at least somewhat, with both of them still being very prevalent throughout. But when it comes to this new interview, Itagaki says this about being questioned on how he envisions the manga ending. Ever since the story moved past Baki's fight with his father, I've had no plans for an ending, meaning since releasing Baki Dao and now Baki Rahen, he has not been pushing the story towards some type of ending or conclusion, which I would say is pretty clear, focusing on these arcs and evolving known characters even more alongside the newly introduced ones, with many callbacks to the past right now in Rahen. On top of that, the exact wording used, mentioning the father-son fight, which as a reminder concluded in 2012 for the manga, meaning it's been 12 years since then, claiming over those 12 years he's had no plans on ending the series. Following that, he continues to say that my pursuit of the meaning of strength is what got me this far, and doubts that will change. Truly a Giga Chad mindset with this grind over the last 30 years, resulting in Baki to sell over 100 million in Japan alone. Imagine if there was an English release on top of that, something I'm still waiting for. Pretty crazy we don't have it considering Baki is one of the most popular manga of all time. He also makes a joke that he's never experienced cancellation, therefore he has never been required to come up with an ending, which is of course goated once again. And claiming that for the future, he'll probably just keep drawing. The story will continue for as long as Itagaki wants. It's never going to be cancelled due to reaching legendary status at this point and being a sole carry for a manga magazine. And I even feel like Baki as a story wouldn't even need an official ending, but we do have some possibilities for a final arc kinda hinted at throughout this interview, which I'll be explaining shortly, alongside many things, so make sure you watch to the end. And of course, welcome to the Mysterious Weeb YouTube channel, the place with all the Baki content you need. So Itagaki is a simple man. His goal is just wanting to show that his work was the superior martial arts manga. Absolutely goated. He also has a gym in his office and still creates the current Rahen chapters in this old-fashioned way, at least in the initial stages. Man is on that non-stop grind, alongside wielding the almighty muscle book, where he gets the inspiration to design all these characters, particularly their glorious muscles, with characters like Oliver being directly based on a real-life bodybuilder from the past, which is absolutely goated as well, highlighting how much of a fan Itagaki is of muscles. That of course connects to the most popular thing to come out of Baki, the almighty demon back, with Itagaki claiming in this interview that the back represents power the most. That's why it portrays Yujiro so strong, that's why Yujiro is pretty much the symbol of the demon back, that's why he's the strongest. Bro is simply wanking the power of the back, you love to see it. He also talks about how it's good to overdo facial expressions, which is clear throughout the Baki manga, particularly with Yujiro again, and reveals that he does in fact exaggerate the impact of attacks, meaning technically they're not really that impactful or slow. The fights are very fast paced, it's just that the art depicts it in a more exaggerated way, with him also confirming that the characters cannot use Ki Blast like Dragon Ball. A lot of people kinda came to this conclusion in the recent anime season where Yujiro attacked and it seemed like a Ki or Soul-like attack. This is again more connected to the exaggeration aspect, not literal energy attacks or anything like that. However, now when it comes to the conclusion of the manga, it was made clear throughout this interview that he really enjoyed the Maximum Tournament, the final arc of Grappler Baki, and pretty much the biggest or main tournament we've had in the entire series. We've technically had others, but can't really be considered as the same caliber as the Maximum Tournament, a more formal type of tournament. And the way he praised it and seemed to have enjoyed writing that part of the story does make me think, if he was to conclude the manga at any point, doing it with a tournament arc would be the perfect way. Again, a send-off for all these characters, have Yujiro participate in this tournament, have all these other characters from the past return to participate stronger than ever before. I think that would be an amazing arc, and if you wanted to conclude it, my guess based on this interview is that this is the approach he would take. However, it's very clear that bro is never going to stop. Now, some other aspects of the interview not really said by Itagaki himself, more so connected to the anime production studio who've made all the Netflix seasons of Baki. They talk about how they struggle somewhat due to the insane art in the manga, and focus on adapting the manga into animation on a scene by scene, panel by panel basis. That's why the pacing in the anime can be seen as quite slow. Yes, they cut stuff out, particularly in the most recent season, but for the most part, when looking at the fights, they animate panel by panel, scene by scene, with even like switches between facial expressions as key moments throughout the episodes. I've said this in other videos, but Baki is definitely a better experience when reading it in manga form. It doesn't really translate the best into animation when they're taking this more direct approach, which is also an issue I expressed for other series like Record of Ragnarok, where they need to take a little bit more of a leeway and make it more fluid rather than one-on-one copies to the manga to make the anime more enjoyable and engaging when it comes to the fights. However, most of us became fans of Baki due to the anime, so it can't be that bad if we're being realistic. So that was all the major points that were outlined throughout this video. The full one will be linked in the description, and this video found here is one me going over previous interviews from Itagaki, revealing some interesting stuff about Yujiro, Baki, and many other things connected to the anime. Shout out to these members, the absolute mad lads. You can become one as well and get access to additional content, the ability to vote on upcoming videos, and much more. That's it guys, peace.